Welcome to Manga's Seal YouTube channel. The previous video link is on the description box or on the top right card. Volume 13, The Paladin of the Holy Kingdom. Personally, Ainz could not forgive wasting the wealth of Nazareth on a battle like this. Where is he? He's gone. Is he using invisibility? I can find him if he's invisible. But he's not there. Is this some other kind of invisibility? He could hear their confusion. You idiots. He's using Perfect Unknowable. Lopusargina. You're cheating. Ainz shouted, but thanks to Perfect Unknowable, others could not hear him. Ainz scratched his head. The evil lord and Yuri seemed to have broken out of the cyclone, and they were now looking all around for Ainz. Well, the best option would have been to drop another nuclear blast on them. That might end up killing Lopusargina, so Ainz abandoned that notion. Instead, he descended and kept tabs on Yuri's position at the same time. After that, he compared the amount of HP Yuri was missing to that of the others, and verified that in addition to the bludgeoning damage, she had also taken fire damage from the earlier magical attack. Triplet Maximize Magic Vermilion Nova. Ainz used the highest level, super tier magic, notwithstanding single target fire element attack spell that he knew on Yuri. It was only to be expected that there would be 10th tier spells that could do fire element damage. For instance, Stream of Lava, Uriel, and the like. However, the use of those presented problems for Ainz. First off, Ainz could not cast Stream of Lava. It was a divine spell which was only usable by a druid like Mare. Uriel, on the other hand, was a spell that could be learned by a magic caster of any type, as long as the requirements to learn it were met, but it only did its listed damage when cast by a magic caster with a maxed out positive karma value. Its damage decreased as one's karma value decreased, and for someone like Ainz, it would do less damage than a first tier spell. Therefore, this spell was Ainz's only choice when it came to usability. Yuri's health dropped drastically. Perfect Unknowable. He disappeared again. That's unfair. If only Ainz-sama would fight us fair and square. No, you're in the wrong for not even thinking of a way around this. And besides, I have no idea where CZ is. You three never said anything about who was taking part in this battle. Now who's being unfair? Ainz shouted, even though he knew the opposition could not hear him. After coming to his senses, the evil lord charged at the place Ainz had been. Too bad, I'm not there anymore. Ainz had begun moving, so he was no longer there. However, he would still be within the area of effect if the evil lord decided to cast area of effect spells. But just as Ainz thought that, the evil lord suddenly changed direction and came straight at Ainz. Ha! Was he not invisible? That question was soon pounded out of existence by the pain he felt. The evil lord sent Ainz flying back. Since it was much more serious than just now, Ainz found it hard to defend against or evade the attack. No, Ainz had been too relaxed, he had not even thought of evading. Fortunately, the fly spell helped control his posture and spared him the ignominy of rolling across the ground. It was just like how it had been during the battle with Sheltier. The evil lord jumped over, hot on Ainz's heels, and his line of sight was most definitely tracking Ainz's flight path. The evil lord of wrath shouldn't have the ability to see through it. Ah, he used it. His trump card, Soul-Bought Miracle. Inspired by stories of selling one's soul to the devil to fulfill one's wishes, this ability was truly miraculous. Well, he was not sure how the procedure worked. Once one used this ability, one could use any one spell of under the 8th tier once. Normally, when evil lords used this ability, they would almost always use healing spells. That was an unwritten rule. However, this time he had probably used a spell to see through Perfect Unknowable. Ainz silently gave thanks that the evil lord had used the ability of which he was the most wary, even as he felt the pressing need to formulate a new battle plan. As the evil lord closed in and punched him again, Ainz began to get worried. While there was quite a large level difference between the two and he still had some room for laxity, he could not simply allow himself to continue getting beaten up like this. Here, have some back. Triplet Maximize Magic, Call Greater Thunder. High-level demons had very high elemental resistances. While their exact resistances varied between type, electricity was one of the more effective energy types against them. After taking 3 hits of a maximized damage elemental attack spell, the evil lord's body trembled. Ainz cast another spell. Perfect Unknowable. Cheap. Ainz-sama, you're so cheap. Ah, seriously. Intoma stomped in frustration, while Lopusargina rolled around on the ground. Solution was the only one who was surveying her surroundings with a razor-sharp gaze. In theory, each individual mercenary vassal should have been identical, yet they had developed divergent personalities like this. Was it because they had copied the relationships between the members of the Pleiades? Or had their personalities changed over time? The evil lord before Ainz followed his movements closely and shouted. Here. Use area of effect attacks here, hit me with it too. Intoma did not hesitate, but breathed a black cloud from her mouth. It was her trump card, her fly breath. However, it was useless against Ainz, because that move did piercing damage. In addition, Ainz was a skeleton. What would the flies eat? In the end, it only served to annoy the Overlord. Hey. It didn't work on him. It only works on me. Being able to copy an ability and use it well were two different things altogether. Surely the real Intoma would not have made such an amateur mistake. I don't have any area of effect attacks. How about you, Yurini? I've got this. Yuri gathered light between her palms. The Kabakishu was a technique that acted as an anti-individual attack when it touched the enemy, but which became a spreading shockwave if it did not make contact. Naturally, as an attack intended for direct contact, it became very weak when dispersed. Since monks were class focused on fighting individuals, they had very few area of effect attacks, practically none. In fact, therefore one could say that it was completely useless. There. He moved. Here. Yuri launched her area of effect Kabakishu at the location where Ainz had been. Ainz wrinkled his brow despite having no brow as he saw this and reached a hand out. No, you should have prioritized healing. Yuri could have healed herself with her Kai. After making his jab at Yuri, Ainz cast his spell. Needless to say, it was a spell that he already knew to be effective. To maximize magic, Vermilion Nova. Having cast an attack spell, Ainz came into view. He looked at Yuri, who was wreathed in flames, and made a cold pronouncement. Yuri, out. Perfect unnoble. Now then, things will get bad if I don't look for CZ in earnest. Having made that decision, Ainz began making a big detour as he kept an eye on the Overlord. Many people stood on the city walls with Nia, watching the battle unfold. While many of them were people who had been swayed to the Sorcerer King's side after he had rescued them, they were not the only ones here. There were priests and paladins here as well. Nia could not see Remedios from where she was standing, but she was close enough that Nia could hear her speak. The only members of the command staff who were absent were Gustav and Caspand. Everyone watching the battle was silent. No. It was simply because there were no words to describe the battle. They should have known this. The members of Blue Rose had said that Jeldabiath's difficulty rating was above 200. In other words, this was like fighting a huge dragon in the form of a human. Just fighting said battle in the land of men would lead to a great tragedy. They ought to have been grateful that only a single city district was destroyed. Many houses were on fire, and white plumes of smoke reached to the sky, but the total casualties were almost nil. While watching the battle, she had seen cyclones, blazes, strokes of lightning and other tremendous manifestations of power that were beyond man's knowledge running wild. Each of these discharges of energy could have easily taken countless lives. Especially. It's beautiful. What had truly moved Nia's heart was the ball of white light that she had seen twice. It was power which consumed everything and made it disappear without a trace. It felt like something good to Nia, although she could not confirm whether it was truly the work of divine might. The incredible devastation she saw in the wake of the light's disappearance frightened her, but her admiration of its great power had won out in the end. It seems the fighting is still going on. I can't believe the battle still isn't over after using all those spells. Jeldabiath is really strong. She had heard about it, and she had even seen it with her own eyes. Yet, Nia's thinking had still been too naive. That naivety was now thoroughly eradicated. The king she served, though only temporarily, and only within the Holy Kingdom, was fighting. She felt that searing his heroic visage into her eyes was only natural as part of her squire's duties, which was why Nia was keeping watch from here. Yet, if she could. Nia tightly squeezed the bow she was carrying. If one looked closely, they would see several other shapes battling the Sorcerer King in addition to Jeldabiath. Those were the Maid Demons, who were rated at difficulty 150. Nia could not do anything but admire the Sorcerer King's power for fighting so many powerful adversaries at once without giving ground. It was at this moment that Nia finally realized something about herself. She envied the people of the Sorcerer Kingdom, those people who were protected by justice. How happy they must be to live in a country ruled by such a being. Weakness is a sin, so one must become strong, or humbly accept justice similar to that of His Majesty. At this point, Nia voiced the words she had been mulling over all this time. The way she repeated it over and over sounded very much like a prayer. Suddenly, there was a large explosion as a meteor fell. It threw the carcasses of buildings high into the air, and they rained back down to the earth amidst a shower of gravel and sand. Captain, isn't Jeldabiath too powerful? Yes, that's right. The Sorcerer King, His Majesty, is also incredibly strong. If he becomes an enemy of our nation, what will we do? Yes, that's right. Captain. Yes, that's right. She could hear Remedios talking to 3 paladins. The paladins asking her questions had probably not seen how Remedios had ended up being toyed with like a child, even after unleashing the Holy Sword's power and stabbing Jeldabiath in the back. Maybe they didn't see it. Still, anyone who saw that fight would have understood. Both the Sorcerer King and Jaldabaoth were unimaginably powerful. Still, it was too late to think about things like that now. No. If His Majesty could take this country under his rule, we would not have to suffer demi-human invasions again. Nia was startled at how perfect that idea was, and even a little afraid. Merging with the Holy Kingdom, if he were a frightening tyrant, even I wouldn't think about it. But the Sorcerer King isn't like that. He is justice. In that case, I ought to gather people who feel the same way as me. Nia pondered the matter. Many people had come to respect and idolize the Sorcerer King. There were those who were drawn to his overwhelming power, those who were grateful for being freed from suffering, those who hated the demi-humans, and who were glad that he had taken revenge on their behalf, and many such others. From them she would select those people who had always been praying for the peace of this country, and then let them hear her words. Nia knew that she was still young and lacked life experience. However, adults with good sense could stop Nia if they felt that her judgment was in error. Let's start by looking among my subordinates in the archer unit. There were people among them who had lost their loved ones and harbored hate in their hearts. It might be better to try persuading them, because Nia could understand how they felt. As she pondered this, she heard a doom as an exceptionally large explosion rang out. After that, a tall building began to collapse far in the distance. The Sorcerer King would not have destroyed that building for no reason. Nia narrowed her eyes to try and see what was going on, but she could not tell what was happening in the building, as it collapsed amidst billowing clouds of dust. It was followed by a massive stroke of lightning from the sky. It would seem he was working towards some objective here, as she had expected. After a while, all manner of spells wrecked the city, and the situation repeated itself.